Welcome, guys. We are back for another edition of the very special now unrunning. We don't know how many episodes there's going to be. A series of Barry Carter themed strategy videos. Barry is very good giving up all his time to play different formats, it seems like, for every video. We keep claiming we're going to turn each one into a series, but we keep just making one or two. This time round, it's going to be Hexapros. They are the lottery sit and go format that we love to play on Unibet Poker. And Barry, I think it's fair to say you've grown a love for playing these recently. I play them as a sort of a filler game all the time. And I've noticed this Barry made T handle in my games quite often recently.
Yeah, I mean, my love for them has waned a little bit because I've gone on a huge downswing since you and I made this video. But they are.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear about
that. But they are good value, as we'll see in the video. I will mention a competitor site, but it's a 1-2 punch. You're going to get the compliment here, David. Okay. One way in which they differ from like the traditional spin and go from PokerStars is you get the 1.5 multiplayer games in Hexapro, which means that you get more big multiplayer games in Hexapro. Like I get a ×5 multiplier and ×10 multiplier quite often in Hexapro games, and I never seem to get them like ever in spin and go games. So that's one of the nice things, because you're always disappointed to get a low multiplier anyway. So you may as well, have a really low multiplier so you can parlay it into a big game when you do spin one of those things.
Nice things. Nice. Well, Dara, you are here as well. I think it's fair to say you're a little bit skeptical about what strategic advice can be offered in a quote, and this is your quote, solved format.
Solid format, which we're not experts in by any means. Such, I think this is probably going to be the easiest one of our videos to dissect and go, yeah, the lads pretty much got every spot wrong there. If you're an expert on the format, they're very much a specialist subject, and in fact, myself and Barry were kicking around the idea at one point of writing a book on them, but then we sort of came to the conclusion that since it is a largely solved format, what can you do in a book other than repeat the solution?
Well, that's a pretty good idea, actually. We should do that.
That's a really short book that might sell really well, particularly if it has a nice cover.
We could knock it out in a month. That'd be a great idea. But yeah, I'll just jump in with some interesting hands. Here we go. You're loading up. We're going to get some big games.
So it's like Blockbusters, guys. I don't know if anyone remembers the old Blockbusters game, but that's what I always think of when I play these.
We got a little
We got a break-even one. No.
Oh my God, look at that. It's lapping in my game.
We're in trouble now.
Yeah.
Oh, but look, immediately a good multiplier on the right. And Lappin's there again. It is fair to say that we did somewhat synchronize our sessions because we hoped that I would end up in a couple of these games at the same time. There might be some battling.
In a non-collusion sense.
In a non-collusion and also non-bum hunting sense, although in this case,
it
would be bum hunting who, it's hard to say.
So on the topic of solved and everything like that, first thing to mention, back in the day, Poker Strategy used to have a lottery sit and go staking stable called Spin Legends. And back in the day, the ranges that we used to give people used to include like just open shoving with hard hands that are difficult to realize equity post flop, but have good raw equity. So king 4, offsuit, pocket 4s, all these hands that probably are ahead free-handed, but you can't play them well post flop. So that's why I've shoved with pocket 4s. Since then, I have actually looked at GTO ranges for these games, and you don't do that at all now. So I don't know what.
Yeah, I was going to say it does feel like a very large shove, because remember, even with the dribble of an ante in play, and in fact, actually in level 1, I don't think there's any ante in play. It is a rather large shove in a no ante game. Dara, your thoughts there on the one on the left?
The pocket 4s spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely used to shove these hands in back in the day, but actually, I still think it might be a thing. I mean, I'm looking at the Range Trainer Pro range for 20 big blinds on the button, and that shoves 4s, 3s, and 2s, which are the classic we have good raw equity, but we don't want to induce, and it's going to hit every flop.
Is there an ante in that game though?
There is, yeah. There's antes from the start in Hexapro. That's one of the ways in which it differs from the other lottery sit and go games.
But there isn't antes in the first level here.
Oh, there isn't antes.
No, there's no ante in this in level 1.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to be profitable and unexploitable. Like, what else are you going to do with fours? The argument the other way sometimes is that if you shove a hand like fours, you just fold out some of the hands you're in good shape against. But then, like, do we really want to raise call fours? Let me just look at the raise call range. Actually, I'm just going to look at the raise call range, GTO ranges for 20 big blinds, and like fives is a raise call, so maybe fours is a profitable raise call as well. It's definitely not a raise fold. So
in a no ante situation.
In a no ante situation, yeah.
Okay. Well, already we hit an interesting spot there. Barry, on the right now, we can see you're playing the Jack 10 against me.
Yeah, what just complete my thought. What I was going to say about fours was that all we do when we shove that hand is we fold out the hands that we're actually in great shape against, like threes and twos probably won't call, but they would shove themselves, and ace 4 suited, ace 3 suited, ace 2 suited, etc. So that's the rationale now for inducing. Also, it's specifically in this format, like there's no ICM. It's
no ICM.
So even taking a very, very skinny edge is going to be correct.
Okay, very good. We see here now Barry's fired flop and now again turn with top pair weak kicker, and he's got me to fold. Well done, Barry.
Yep.
Again, unexploitably large shove here with threes into me. He gets it through.
Yeah, let me just check that one very quickly. Small blind ranges are sometimes a bit funky. We actually go wider with our shoves in from the small blind because of our positional disadvantage. So we shove all the small pairs.
Nice.
So
okay.
I've completed with 6-10 offsuit. I mean, do we pill around with that hand? I don't know, but I figured I'm playing almost everything in a blind v blind.
We really only fold the really bad unsuited stuff, like 8-4 off and worse. So yeah, this is a very standard call. Now we are supposed to do a bit of raising with these hands as well, because we're going to be raising the top of our range as an induce, and therefore we need to have raised folds as well. Yep. And this is kind of the right type of hand to do it with, that we give up very little when we fold this to a 3-bet.
So I flop trips. I lead out. This is in some situations I don't lead out here because what am I going to get called by that I am beaten? But I've got a showing off type image with Lapid, which is my rationale for just leading out here.
Always with the metagame.
Lapin played a hand recently in Barcelona where he called down in a spot like this with Jack 6. So
she might be the same board there.
I liked it. It's a very similar board, yeah. So I definitely like the lead against.
Well, I have called twice. I guess I could have some flush draws here. I wish I knew my hands. I can't remember. It was too long ago. But I suppose in most worlds I have a 5 here.
Well, I I did check the river here because I figured, I'm presuming he's calling with some sort of draw here. I mean, maybe he calls with a random 5, but when he calls the second bet with that ace, I figured he's got either like an ace or a flush draw or a bet 10. So I thought inducing a bluff would be the right strategy here. And
I think you can probably, that's actually, okay, that's an interesting check back for me. Maybe can we stop that one there?
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think of my check back there? In my mind, I was like, Barry should actually go for value here if he has a hand like King 5 or Queen 5, because he's literally targeting my worst 5s, assuming that I raise a lot of my ace X behind. And obviously, you're targeting the 10s for value and you're basically bet folding. So if he had Queen 5 or King 5, I'd probably go for some value. But he's got the 10-6, which is obviously definitely in the value range. So, and he's decided actually he's going to try and induce bluffs by checking. In the end, I'd actually rivered 3 pair, so I sort of improved to 10s and 9s with the ace kicker, which is interesting enough. Maybe there was some metagame in my mind because I feel like I'm probably it's reasonable for me to tin value bet this one on the river, but I decided maybe Barry was trying to be a bit fancy.
I think it's way too thin, to be honest, to bet this. Like what calls you that's worse?
I suppose a 5.
Oh yeah, of course you've got 10s and 9s. Yeah.
No, I've improved to the.
You haven't. Oh yeah. And actually, on retrospect, I do think this is a bit nitty. Yeah, because a lot of his yeah, he can definitely have the 5, and he's effectively been counterfeited. Yeah, I think then it's Barry, so he does get a bit trappy in these spots as well. I think it's super close, to be honest. Like against a normal player, I think I'd definitely value bet, but against Barry, maybe not.
I'm flashing. It is flashing back to me now that I remember feeling very smug that you didn't trap me.
Yeah. I think it's one of those spots where Barry won the pot, but you won the hand.
Well, Barry, perfectly fine. King 8 shove there, blind v blind. Looks like we're just going to have a little heads up battle here. I don't know. I think we might have a couple of heads up battles before the end of this session.
Yeah, for the most part, this video is just hands that me and Lappin played together, by the way. Theme of the video.
That's a shove as well. Oh, you limped that one. Okay.
I just figured I had to have a limp in range, and I thought a crap hand would be a good hand to limp fold.
It's an above average hand though, so
you can call me off here if I shove.
Yeah, I will do. Don't worry.
You do? And you have me lovely and dominated. Oh, bad luck, Barry. Bad luck, Barry. That's very boo. No, it's disgusting.
1-0 to Barry.
And a 50 quid multiplier as well. Look at that, Barry. Congratulations. Yeah. Straight back on the horse. Oh, and we're heads up again. Oh, and we're deep heads up, so we must have eliminated the other guy first hand.
Literally, that's what happens in Hexapro a lot of the time. Like I'd say half the time, I'd say one player goes out with a hand they shouldn't in the first 2 hands with Hexapro. Like quite often, you'll see someone shove like ace-2 offsuit and get called by 9-10 or something like that for 25 bigs, and then your heads up.
You can see I'm deploying a limping strategy. Sometimes I will absolutely be happy to do here, playing anything from really, all the way down. In fact, I will limp quite a few hands. But yeah, I probably need to get back up in the kind of 30 big blind zone effective to start considering a raising strategy. Maybe 25 is the cutoff. I'll certainly start bringing in some raises at 25.
You folded there even with the ante. That should be a very narrow, bad range.
I imagine I did have something in the region of, as you said, Dara, the 8-4 off, the 7-3, 7 deuce, the 6 deuce. It's I would agree with you there. In this situation, I pretty much have to be.
You're getting 3.5 to 1 on the call, so your hand has to be really terrible.
Looks like I might get a bit lucky here.
No, boo.
Sorry, Barry. I feel like the bad beat.
Okay, well, you won the 10 quid, he won the 50. So.
Well, yeah, this is it. Like them's the breaks in Hexapro.
So Lappin's limped.
Oh,
before we
am I trapping you?
Yeah, before we go though, like, is this always a shove? I mean, I can't particularly imagine myself.
I think it can be an induce.
It could be an induce. I'm actually going to check the charts on this one.
I'm definitely calling if
it feels like it could very well be strong enough to induce.
Yeah, I think you want to maybe give my ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4 an opportunity to limp shove.
Yeah, it is an induce. I'm actually surprised by how wide the induce range is. We go all the way down to 6s too.
I was going to say 6s. Yeah, I was going to say
it's only 5s and below that we shove. Again, this is a recurring theme because when you have a hand that low, there's just so few hands you dominate that you'll get in by inducing. But when you have a hand like 6s, you are giving rope to all the smaller pairs, ace 5, ace 4, etc., etc.
Oh, look at that. He fell right into my cunning trap.
Waste of a set, though.
It's lovely to watch it all over again. Oh, and we're heads up again. My God, this is ticking fast. Okay, well, 18 big blinds all in. As you say, at this stack depth, I've definitely got a mix of strategies. I've got some shoves, I've got some opens, I've got some limps. I've got a very small number of folds.
Yeah.
But it is exactly the stack where you have to sort of have a very complicated setup range. Interesting for you here, Barry, with the 4. Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely have bet if you checked, because I've got the gutter.
I would check if he'd bet, but I would call when he bets, because he can have a lot of draws we're actually ahead of, that turn straight draws or flush draws.
Pause this one if you can, Barry. This one's interesting to me because obviously it would be unexploitable to just shove it. The question is, like, King Queen, I would certainly use as an induce. So King Jack suited feels really close and potentially an induce as well. Or possibly even limp to induce is the other option too. So I'm interested to know where we stand on this one, because I think this one actually could go a few different ways.
Yeah, again, like not a heads up expert, so not 100%. I can definitely see a case for all of the options here. I probably like shoving the least of them. I suspect this is a mix between raise call and limp call, or limp reshove if you make a normal raise. Yeah,
that's exactly where I would lean towards. I would feel like while King Jack suited shove here has to be profitable, it's not the most profitable line.
Yeah, it's profitable, but the big problem with it again is like you're folding up mostly hands that you dominate.
Yeah,
a lot of those hands will give you action themselves if you just limp or raise. So
yeah, I have to say I quite like the idea of a limp call here, because as you pointed out, Dara, it does give you the option that if I make a normal raise, you can come over the top, and that's quite a result. And then I think limp calling is just good. I'm going to have loads of weaker kings that I just shove in your eye here. You do go for the raise call, however.
Size is big.
Size is kind of large, so it would deter me from a looser shove, actually, by the fact that you went bigger.
Yeah, I think the size is too big there.
It's just often a case in short stack heads up situations where you just have a hand that is good enough to go for that number of blinds. So the case is, how do you get it in? Do you get it in yourself? Do you limp to trap, get it in? Do you limp to raise, get it in? But the minute you look at a hand, you just go, well, that's worth stacks here.
Yeah. Andrew Brocas is a very good phrase to use in these spots, which is that like there's a best way to get it in.
Yeah.
Not all the ways you get it in are equal. Like if you shove and the guy calls, well, yeah, okay, he needs to have a hand that was strong enough to call. But if you like limp and he shoves, he's probably got a wider range, so that's a better way to get it in.
Yeah. Okay, so in this spot, Barry, I think we've got another one a bit like earlier on where you've definitely gotten induced.
No, I remember this one. This is like about 1 minute after that hand happened, so I was really hoping that you were going to have pocket nines.
That's very specific. What I would say there is, actually, we can pause for just a split second, is that, okay, I've limped in there. I think the effective stack is about 14 bigs, and you have jacks. I don't think you have to make a large raise. You're obviously out of position, but like really when the stacks are this shallow, your raise size can be quite small. I wouldn't recommend minning, because I think that actually does open the door to just not charging me enough, and I flat and can realize a bit too often. But I think you don't have to go 3x. Normally out of position, if we're nice and deep, you'd probably be thinking about 4xing and 3.75xing. With these stack sizes, I think you can maybe like 2.5, as little as that, with the jacks.
I'm pretty certain the main thing I was thinking about was how funny it would be if so soon after the previous hand. I'm almost certain that was like 95% of my strategy there.
Well, I do not begrudge you. It would have been hilarious. So there we go. We're battling on here. Ace King for Barry. Well, he's going to have a snap if I stick it in, as I will do with a lot of my range with 12 bigs. Queen 6, right at the bottom. Oh, look at that 6, that beautiful 6. Yeah. Oh, that ugly king.
This is really nice to watch while I'm currently on a downswing. It's nice to know that these.
Just to remember.
Yeah.
Dara, my Queen 6 shoved there. What do you feel?
For how many bigs was it?
I think it was effective 12.
It was just 10 or 11.
10 or 11.
Yeah.
Don't love it. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like, do you have any raise calls in your range?
Off that stack?
Yeah.
Probably. Okay, so pause it there and I will reveal a little bit of
Or
what I
limp
would
calls.
do. So, yes, but it's very polarized. So I would have my very, very strong hands that I would put into the raise range off that stack.
Yeah.
And then I would mix that up with things like suited bad aces and suited bad kings. Or maybe even, no, they probably go into the shove range, to be honest. It does have to be balanced, though. So you do need to find some hands to do it with. And you generally don't want them to be complete rubbish either, because, you know, it's going to get called when you do the little min raise a lot. So you want to have sort of some way. Dara, in that situation, would you put a preference on board coverage by maybe putting some of your lower hands into that range, where if you get raised folded, you don't mind, like maybe a hand like, I don't know, 7-5 or something like that, where if he does call, I can take a little stab on high flops, but actually have a bit of board coverage on low flops?
Yeah, I think the way I'd do it is I'd have my inducing range, and then everything just below that I would shove, and then the stuff just below that is the stuff that I use as raise folds. But I would want something like, I wouldn't just use an absolute trash hand. So
yeah, I agree.
I would use a decent amount of suited stuff, like, you know, stuff like 9-4 suited maybe.
Okay, so that kind of category.
Equity. But I would also use stuff like 7-5 off as well, for board coverage reasons as well, and also like you're giving up very little when you have to fold it pre. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to construct your range.
Very good. Heads up again.
Okay, the 6-4 off, I'm not sure I love, Barry. I'm going to be honest.
It's just because I was aware that I'd been limping a lot of shit like that, so I thought I'd go for something low and coordinated.
Okay. If it was suited, it's certainly a slam dunk, but I think offsuit's probably a few pips below.
Yeah, it's definitely not a shove.
We have obviously flop second pair here, which is reasonably strong in most worlds. I am firing a second bullet, though, so putting a bit of pressure on your range there. It's a close one, I think.
It's close. I guess we have better fours that can continue, that have turned it equity in some other way.
Yeah.
Probably one of our worst fours. But yeah, I think in GTO world, we have to hang on.
So now playing 6 big blinds effective. This probably becomes a call. It's
yeah.
Not one you love, but it's pretty and it has 40% a lot.
Mm.
And unfortunately, you've come off the wrong end of it. But yeah, as you can see there with me, even with the 2 overcards and suitedness, you still probably had 38%. So not far off the price, even when I showed up with a premium. And now we're heads up again, deep again. So again, the tendency here seems to be that we didn't actually play for that long together. I want to say this was half an hour, maybe, of overlap, Barry.
I think it was about an hour. I think,
or maybe it was an hour. Yeah. Because I was going to say the fact that we've gotten heads up so often, when like you were definitely not in at least 2/3 of my games during this hour.
Yeah.
The 4-2 suited fold there was very, very tight.
Thank you.
Like yeah, we said it before, but you are getting an amazing price because there's also
the antes,
the ante. You're getting like 3.5 to 1, so you have to have a really terrible hand to even consider folding.
Okay, interesting spot for you here.
I just don't think you were bluffing there, particularly for what they blind.
I don't remember, but I could be.
He might be just scallywagging, going, he has shown no interest in this pot. Let's throw out a 1 big blind bet and hope it works. With
my 5 high, playing the board.
Yeah. What you have to kind of do in those spots, if you think you're up against somebody that you don't really know their strategy, is just think how many better hands you have. And if you don't have enough, then they can just do this with any 2 cards. And that seems like a spot where Lappin can do it with any 2 cards. Like that shove.
Yeah, that was a good shove, Barry. Definitely a limp here, yeah. It's like I'm plotting something or I'm under pressure of zero. I've gone for my small raise.
Look at this fishy 1 big blind.
Okay, I've gone for a really little one. So this is usually a premium from me, I'm going to be honest. But I will balance a little, so we'll see.
Yeah, I pretty much just finished writing something in the new book about double backdoor hands. I think this is the
this qualifies as a double backdoor for sure. On a paired board, though, not quite as nice, but yeah.
Well, this is what I was thinking, right? Like if I opened the cutoff and the big blind called or something like that, where the ranges are a little bit more defined, I don't think I'd be doing this on a paired board. But because it's heads up, I kind of thought, right, we can't be worried about trips and full houses when most of the time we've missed. So I still thought it was a decent time to do it.
I'm interested to know what happens because I have no leading range here. So you get a chance to take a stab now with your gutter to the bad end. Oh, and I do let it go. Oh, interesting. Oh, you might have scallywagged me off like queens there, Barry. Genuinely, you might have got me off queens or jacks there. I can't remember my hand, but the only hands I can imagine myself taking that line with are like queens and jacks. So well done. Now that I know you've got the all the backdoor stuff in your arsenal, I'll have to be stickier with my queens and jacks in future.
Yeah, you also know that I'm continually limp like queen 4 and jack 4 and stuff, so I'll have to adjust for that as well by not doing that.
Okay, so you've got 10 could be the best hand right now, and you've got the 6 of clubs working for you. Would still be hard to imagine I'd come out with too many leads.
Also, this is a board where most of Lapin's strong hands have raised pre. So
yeah. So I can definitely have a 9 here. I could definitely have a weak king here. You are now going to turn your hand into a bluff, interestingly. And I don't remember what I have, so I don't know. But I would definitely. I think I would have blockered a 9, and I did have the weak. So.
And then Chan call as well. What a nit.
Well, I'm playing a lot of tables at the same time now. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm slow rolling. I've 3x, so I've chopped your stack. Wonder if I start chopping your stack here again. Stick in the jack 3 suited. You get me to fails. That's always a good result. Queen 8 is a call.
Definitely a call, yeah.
Oh, but look what I've done. I've chopped it. I've chopped it to confuse you.
Stop the video, right?
Stop the video.
You did this a lot. You did this in some pots where there was a third person. And you put in like half an effective stack. Maybe 2 or 3 times. And I was curious of the rationale. And I know the rationale behind this when ICM is involved. Like you're effectively doing an all-in, but if the next 2 players got it in and it came back round to you, you potentially could make a very tight ICM fold to ladder. But what's the logic with this bet size, or did you just misclick?
No, the logic is actually, and this is something Dara and I used to talk about a long time ago. Now, obviously, occasionally there would be sort of a perceived advantage in full ring situations where I remember a lot of the time we were playing shallow stack 3Xs and you would want to try and manipulate it so you had the button post add-on. That was one thing that we would do to sort of just create the ability to use more time bank if we needed to try and manipulate that situation. But the main one, and again, it's something Dara and I spoke about, and I'd say this is like right when we first met, like this is the kind of stuff we were talking about at the beginning, was how if you are basically going all in, if you're psychologically putting somebody all in, there's a sort of psychological barrier for them to calling off than there is raising. For them to raise, sometimes you are actually going to manage to carve off maybe the worst couple of hands that they would call off, because they just don't psychologically like the idea of raising that hand, even though they're not really, you've effectively put them in. But because they have to hit the raise button rather than call, I think sometimes with some players, you will remove a couple of hands off the bottom. The second reason is that, and this is a phrase of an old pal of mine, Alex Givotowski, was, again, always give your opponent an opportunity to make another mistake. So sometimes you will be up against people. I don't think you're one of these, by the way, Barry, but sometimes you're up against people who will make a call here and then fold to the the flop bet. So sometimes you're giving your opponent an opportunity to make a hideous mistake.
I think I'll probably do then, because I think I'm almost certainly confused folded this one.
Nice, so it worked. Go Dara and Lappin circa 2012.
Yeah, I think the confusion aspect can't be understated. People will just get confused. Like really, they should just treat the function as an all-in.
Yeah,
but they don't. So, and also that it's if you move all in yourself, they can calculate the pot odds fairly quickly. But if you've got chips behind, they have to add that to the pot, and then it gets a bit more complicated. So, for people who are not great at mental arithmetic as well, it can throw them off.
Oh yeah, well, thankfully that doesn't include me. I'm not too sure why we didn't see the conclusion of that particular heads-up match. I presume I won.
it was probably just a cooler. I imagine a
cooler. Interesting multi-way spot. This is kind of like a nice-looking hand-tab multi-way, kind of. You got a little bit of potential with it. I can't remember what happened. Actually,
yeah, this is definitely an interesting situation. Got all the more interesting by that turn card as well.
Yeah,
we're still three-way, so it checked all the way around on the flop in a limped pot.
I mean, 10 big blinds effective. I'm not too sure what I can do here. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do.
So my range is any two cards. So is yours almost. You probably have managed to fold a few hands pre, and our villain obviously put money in the pot voluntarily. On that river, I don't think you can ever get away. I have no idea what I have.
I've just paused it because I can't remember what happens, but in my head now, I'm almost certainly calling this. So let's see what happens. Okay, but just for the record, I would have called it.
Now, should we be value betting that river, Dara?
I think there's certainly a case for it because both players have had two opportunities to bluff and they haven't taken them. So it's kind of less likely they're going to go for it at the third attempt. They look like they've either given up, which
we're definitely not worried about Jack, right?
Or the ace five is just trying to get the showdown.
Yeah, and it just feels like by betting there, like as you said, you sort of reverse free rolling, really, unless you think there's bluffs out there. I guess I might take a stab sometimes, but like probably not. I don't think if the guy in the button who's voluntarily put money in the pot is going to now choose this run out and this river to finally now take a stab with a weaker hand. So actually, I think you should be targeting the 8s and 7s.
Yeah, I'd like a one big blind bet there, basically.
Yeah.
Because then you will get a cry call from players who just don't want to be exploited by folding ace high. And sometimes you might even induce a bluff. And I think our hand by the river is kind of nutty because we should really have heard from all the better hands by then.
Yeah. So a good shove here by Barry with the raggy ace. Looks like I'll have woken up stronger, and Jorgo decides he has the kind of hand that can Phil.
Yeah,
well, you saved this one for last, did you?
Beautiful.
Probably was the last time. Yeah, it is the last time.
Well, look, if it is last, I know we get to watch you win it. Maybe no, we don't. That's
best hand. Lost both the main pot and the side pot. You love to see it.
Yeah, you do love to see it. Well, look, guys, that was a fascinating, if albeit sort of rapid fire glimpse into the world of lottery sit and goes. Hexapros on Unibet, they generally, as you said, Barry, there will give you more of those sort of middle tier converters. So you'll end up with a lot of 5x and 10x's in your session a lot of the time. Actually, one of the accumulators just gives you what you bought in for it. It's a 3x, so you end up actually just getting a sort of a rake free game in that scenario. But much like the others, sometimes you do get a small one, and that's part and parcel of the lottery aspect of it. They are really good fun. They're really good fillers. I would recommend them to people who think they have an edge short stack. I would emphasize that with Hexapros in particular on Unibet, you're not just playing against Unibet players, you're actually playing against people all across the Unibet network, or the Kindred network if you want, or the Relax network, which involves a lot of just these pure gambling sites. There's a lot of gambling sites that are basically sports betting sites and casino sites, and the one bit of poker they get offered is the Hexapro, and they're thrown into our pool. So that makes them very lucrative, to be honest. I'm sure you've seen it as well, Barry, where people have jumped into them and just be punting from hand one.
They're mobile players as well, right? They're those sites are phone only. Am I right?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to be honest, but they definitely are phone sites too.
Yeah. I mean, that in my mind just makes it softer, just because of the low barrier to entry for someone who's never played poker before to do it just without even having to have a desktop computer.
Yeah. Word to the warning, though, as Barry is experiencing at the moment, they are still the kinds of games that can have quite significant downswings. You can run poorly in the lottery aspect, and then you can run poorly for quite a prolonged period, even in 3-max sit and goes. It does happen. You will have stretches. So don't think that they are somehow, because they're three-handed sit and go type games, that they won't put you through your paces. They will on that front. So do have a bit of a bankroll, or sort of choose your buying amount for your bankroll sensibly. But I think they are profitable.
I spoke to a friend of mine that runs a lottery sit and go stable, and he said that the average win rate of a good reg in those games is 3%, and the bankroll management suggestion was 200 buy-ins. So that's the kind of the yin and the yang with games like Hexapro. You get some very, very bad players, but because the stacks are shallow, the edges are very small, and then you have the secondary kind of gamble element of what price pool are you playing for. So yeah, lots and lots of fun. Can potentially be very frustrating as well for some stretches.
Well, what I will say as well, there's always a jackpot as well to be had, and a good friend of ours, good friend of the show's, in fact, former employee of the show, Dara, unpaid employee, Dara Davey, did manage to get in the mix for one of the 100k jackpot ones that we did on the 100 quid ones several years ago when we were launching this format. He didn't actually win it. I think he came second or third for 10 or 15 grand booby prize, but still a pretty nice payday. And he did have an incredibly exciting 6 minutes or 7 minutes where he could suddenly have had 100k added to his roll. I think it was, I do remember getting the text message as him screaming, going, oh my God, as he hyperventilated. So you can hit the jackpot once in a blue moon, and they become very exciting as well. Yeah. Dara, they say video killed the radio star. I guess spin and goes killed the sit and go star. You were a very good sit and go player in your day, specializing in heads up at one point, and full ring heads sit and goes at another point as well. And I know, again, back in the day, you were able to carve out quite a generous ROI, as was I when I played it. Those edges didn't exist in the latter years of sit and go popularity, and I guess spin and goes put the death nail into that coffin.
Yeah, to be honest, I think sit and goes were kind of dead anyway before they came along. If anything, you could argue that they revitalized something like a sit and go, although the winner takes all aspect is obviously different. A lot of our edges in sit and goes came from just ICM understanding, which the population definitely didn't have back then, and that was where most of the edge came from. With as Barry said, like, even if people are playing absolutely terribly, given how shallow the stacks are and how fast structures are, that really caps how much of an edge you can have. But I think the big selling point, and you touched on it there, is just like, in what other format can you sit down, chuck in €5 or €10 or whatever it is, and 10 minutes later I've won 100 grand. It's not tournaments, it's not cash, it's only spin and goes. So for the pure recreation who just wants the thrill of the potentially huge prize, they're obviously the nuts.
Our mutual friend Nick Jones from Poker Fuse actually wrote something about this a few years ago, and it seems that the lottery sit and goes have taken traffic away from cash games more than they have sit and goes. Why that is, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because it's like a chip EV format rather than a.
I think the fact is a chip EV format, and I think also the fact, like, I think a reason why a lot of online cash players favor cash is you can determine how long your session is.
Yes.
When you're a tournament player, like, you could sit down to play at 6 in the evening and you're hoping to be done by midnight, but you could still be there at 5 a.m. So you can never really predict how long you're going to play. Whereas if you are playing just spin and goes, you can decide, okay, I'm ending in 3 minutes, and stick to that. I think that's a huge reason, but also the chip EV thing, yeah, for sure. Like, the biggest mistakes that cash game players make when they play tournaments are all ICM errors. So if you take away the ability to make those in a format, then it's going to be a much better format for the cash players to play.
Yeah, on a final point on the sort of types of players who've gravitated towards them, actually a lot of full ring sit and go players just moved across into MTTs. That made much more sense, as you said there, a bit of ICM, full ring aspects, full ring ranges. that made more sense for them. It was mostly the heads up sit and go guys who moved into these because, of course, well, heads up, you didn't have any ICM in those either, and heads up, well, it gets heads up pretty damn quick, and then that becomes the crucial point of the game. Okay, guys. Well, look, a really, really interesting video again. I hope we didn't butcher any of the close spots. I hope we managed to cover all the relevant strategic points in all the different hands. They were coming at us thick and fast. Barry Gardner, we appreciate you as always.
My pleasure.
And Dara Kearney, thank you for your analysis.
Thanks, Barry and David.
Bop, bop.